All right, good morning, everyone. Today's January 24th. I have Sierra Smith from Sun Peak Official back, and I gave her like 1 week to prepare for this topic. So this should be a good one. But my good friend Hugo Alonso from Stay Winning Podcast posted on X a few weeks back that zero state income tax is a wealth hack. So we're going to talk about that. So welcome back, Sierra.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so I gave you a lot of time to prepare for this one. So I think you're gonna have like charts and everything for this. So I'm ready for this.
Can I screen share?
Oh, are you serious? Yeah, I think it should be. Let me
Maybe.
see.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
disabled. So if you want to get that ready, but
Oh,
I did pull up a website because um I was following that tweet on X and I because I had clicked on it or liked it or something, I think I ended up with some more suggested content that was around taxes in the different states and stuff like that. And I know we've talked about on a previous episode where like the taxes on groceries here in Tennessee, like there's like a 3 month time of every year that they don't even tax groceries. And so there's like some different things going on with taxes, like in all the different states. And we had talked about, is it truly worth it to move to a state that doesn't have state income tax, and are they making up for it in some other way, in some other tax, like whether it be property tax or, just higher cost of living in general. So yeah, let's dig into more of that.
yeah. So what kind of charts and things did you discover?
Let's go here, maybe. All right, is it showing?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, so I pulled up this website. This is NPR, and I think this was updated in 2023, so I'm not sure what month, but it's pretty recent. And this is ranking the states by overall tax burden. So it kind of takes into account both property taxes and income taxes and stuff like that. So the highest tax burden states here are like New York, Hawaii, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland, Minnesota, Illinois, and Iowa. And then when you kind of look at that with down here, it talks about the property taxes. And so when you have the highest burden, like for property tax alone, Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire were on that list. So if you kind of look at that, the highest tax burden overall and the highest property tax, both Maine and Vermont are making those lists. So those would probably be the states I initially am like, okay, I would probably stay out or away from those. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, I think for me, just briefly looking at this, so like, of course, I'm in Hawaii. Hawaii's number two, I see. I think that one, I guess, would be like that one where I really want to focus on more because like where does the environment that you're living in and the amount of taxes that you're paying or even saving, like when does that factor in? Now, where's that line to cross, as far as I'm willing to pay this much tax because of the great weather or, outdoor activities that Hawaii has to offer.
Yeah, and you have to look at, income earning potential in these states too, right? Like you are probably going to get higher wages in New York than you're going to get in some of these lower tax burden places. But it always depends on the position. What do you think about income earning potential when it comes to like being in Hawaii versus like the cost of living there?
Yeah, so I think that's my what I'd like to tell people a lot of times. Like Hawaii is a great place to like visit and retire. It's very difficult to get ahead here. You don't have a lot of opportunities to maybe increase your income as much as other places. I mean, definitely now that you can do a lot of stuff remotely or online, it is a little bit easier, but just we don't have a lot of tech jobs here, like let's say like California. So there's less opportunity, I would say. So that's why I'm always big, like, you should try to make your money, if you have to go move away for a while, earn more income, and then you can always come back and, retire here and whatnot. I think that might be one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it definitely has advantages, like if the weather is something that's super important to you or those extracurricular activities. I mean, but you can see like the percentages, like, okay, is it worth an extra 5% of my income? Like when you're looking at the difference between, the lower ones versus the higher ones, like you're kind of just looking about 5, 6%, right? So just kind of factor that into income earning potential as well as like the perks of being there and kind of see if it's worth it.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, would you, let's say, would you live in Alaska, because of, or like the low tax burden over someplace like Hawaii, for instance, just to save on taxes? Like, where would you draw the line, I guess?
Ooh, where would I draw the line? Yeah, that's a great question. And it kind of just makes me back up and say like, is what's my ultimate goal? Is it just to be getting ahead financially, or are there other, what's most important? And would I make this decision solely based on taxes? Because as soon as I read Alaska as the lowest, I'm like, no, I wouldn't. So I wouldn't want to be somewhere where I'm going to get a lot more hours of darkness most of the year than, warm, sunny days. And so I think you do kind of, I mean, you could probably like lay this out on a chart. It'd be great to see like, you know, the Sun Belt and some of these areas that have nicer weather and the tax burdens associated with them, but then also what kinds of things are they offering? What like we kind of talked about before, like what's the education that's being offered in these states? And are you raising a family in these places, or are you wanting to retire there? Or are you wanting to, start a business somewhere? Are you wanting to invest there? What are the laws in these states for landlords? Are they landlord friendly? Like you kind of have to dissect it out and I don't think that I could make the decision based solely on the tax burden.
Yeah, I kind of look at it from like like the expense or earning more income. Some people are trying to reduce their expenses as much as possible, whereas some people are more focused on earning more income. And I think, that's kind of how I look at it, where you can only lower your taxes so much, where you have the opportunity to earn as much as you can or increase your income. So I think that's for me how I'm looking at it, where, yeah, of course, I probably want to go somewhere where I don't have this huge tax burden, but at the same time, my focus is more on just increasing more income, passive income, where it allows me to not really worry so much on what the tax burden is on where I want to live or retire.
Yeah, and I think that's where it makes the most sense is if you are in one of these highest tier tax places and if you're considering, trying to get ahead, it's almost like considering just a temporary move or a temporary play financially to say, like, okay, I do like it here, but for the time being, for the next 5 years or something, I'm going to go from like one of these highest tier places, like you're saying, like where you're at in Hawaii, to maybe one of the lower tier places. And then you have that bigger like swing, but it's kind of like a temporary commitment. Like I would do it for a little while because it's going to help me get ahead, but then hopefully you can, not have to factor that in to your future choice.
Yeah, I see I have friends in Tennessee, Missouri, Oklahoma on this lowest tax burden. So I might be hitting you folks up to, maybe relocate for a while, like you're saying, and lower my tax burden for this temporary fix, right? To earn more and be able to invest more. And then later on, hopefully you can kind of relocate to wherever you choose.
Exactly. And so I was going to point out, like, one thing I thought was interesting was we talked about how a lot of people are like, oh, it's not worth it to move to one of these states with uh, no state income tax because they're going to get you in some other way. But there really, when I looked at these lists, there didn't seem to be a lot of crossover as far as that goes. Like there wasn't, like New Hampshire was the only one that had a low tax burden, but high property tax. And that was the only one that was kind of like, okay, well, maybe that's balancing out a little bit. But like Tennessee, for instance, has low tax burden plus low property tax, plus it's one of the states that has no state income tax. So it's kind of like, well, I can see why it's one of the more popular ones for people who are leaving California to kind of escape that really high tax burden. And they're coming here because they're kind of getting that like all of it. They're getting the benefits of the property prices being less, as well as the taxes being less, and just kind of the overall like not having to do that state income tax. I know for a lot of people from California who are still working remotely, like that's a pretty big pay raise for them.
Yeah. And then, a lot of them, you can go buy something outright cash, a home, right? You can take the equity, or, if you do sell a property in California, which has a lot of value in it, and then you can go buy something for cash and you don't have a lot of risk on the table. And then at the same time, it's kind of, I always look at it where I can always go enjoy the weather, like during the winter months and whatnot. So I can live somewhere where my money goes a little bit further, and then I can always visit and spend a lot of time in these where like Hawaii right now, we're probably 70 degrees in the morning, and a lot of people are messaging me like, oh, what's the weather like? And they're jealous, and when they're shoveling snow right now, and they're just like, oh man, I'd love to be there. But then at the same time, it's a trade-off, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and I know a lot of people end up, wanting to have their primary address in one of these states, but then they essentially spend, so much time traveling or snowbirding or something like that, so that they're kind of taking advantage of their home being in one of these states, but they're still getting to kind of enjoy the perks of all the other places.
Yeah, that's kind of my plan. I'm surprised North Carolina wasn't on there, but I see Tennessee and Oklahoma, so that's someplace you're considering moving from Tennessee to Oklahoma also, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely high on the priority list this year. And but that even that, going from Tennessee, which has no state income tax, to Oklahoma, which does have income tax, but it's still on the lower, tax burden side. It's kind of like, oh, it is going to be a little bit of a hit as far as that goes. So we're kind of taking that into consideration. But property prices are so much cheaper there that, overall, we still think it would be a net gain for us.
Plus, you have family there, right? So that, like we're saying, like where is that line you draw, right? Some people do live in high cost of living areas or places where there is a lot of tax burden, but there's other reasons like family reasons. They want to be close to family.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so
if you
there's a
can
lot of
situate
factors. Yeah.
yourself, yeah, if you can situate yourself to have, childcare at an affordable rate because you have family around, I mean, that right there is a pay raise for a lot of people if they can work that out.
Yeah, but I thought you enjoyed being at a distance also for the holidays with, not having to travel and maybe
Definitely do.
participate.
It's give and take it,
See,
no
exactly,
matter
right?
what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, there's a lot of, factors that go into it, and it can't, and that's why I think like it can't solely come down to like, having the lowest tax burden, or, avoiding state income tax. So there is a lot of factors, and you just got to find that balancing act, and what matters most to you.
Yep, it's a formula to put together, and it's definitely something to consider, and I don't think a lot of people consider it until they've moved and they're just like, "Oh, this is like a nice perk." But yeah, it's something to factor in for sure.
I'm surprised you didn't come up with a formula with a week's
Well, I probably
preparation.
thought, yeah, I did think about it, but then I don't know, that would have been quite the data analysis for for your channel.
But I also think the challenge is a lot of people, maybe, I don't know if fear is the right way to put it, but they're, like maybe, a lot of people, born and raised in Hawaii, and they just don't see themselves ever leaving. But that's also because they've never really given it a chance. And so they think like, this is my home, I'm going to stay here. And then sometimes people move for whatever reason, for, they go to Vegas, and they're like, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? And I think that's part of it too. Maybe fear is what's holding a lot of people back.
Yeah, from my experience, people who have not moved in their lifetime are very afraid of moving. And they have a lot of hesitation, and there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty. And I didn't move very far as a child, but we did move several times. And I think that I just became immune to like that kind of fresh start and being able to do it. And the more you kind of travel and move, the more you realize like you're really not that far from anything that you want to get to. And it's not that hard to travel if you just kind of make that part of your lifestyle. So I think there is a lot of fear around it, and people don't even consider relocating for financial reasons or for a job. And I think that that should be higher on the list for people who really want to try to get ahead.
Yeah, I think it's getting a little more common now in Hawaii. But I think also another thing is a lot of people, I think, look at you being crazy for wanting to leave Hawaii, right? So a lot of people, like, not nothing. I mean, I've never been to Oklahoma, but when you say I'm going to move from Oklahoma to Tennessee, you probably don't get a lot of people like, oh, why do you want to leave Oklahoma to go somewhere else? Where if you tell someone, oh yeah, I'm gonna pick up and leave Hawaii, a lot of times you're like, why do you want to leave paradise, or why do you want to leave the great weather, and why do you want to leave these things? And they look at you and they're kind of, so maybe you have doubt in your mind also. And I think that's a lot of it for a lot of people when they start thinking about if this is the best decision for themselves. But there's a lot of doubters there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because it's like the barrier to entry to even get to Hawaii, right, is pretty high. Like for at least from over here, like you got to move across the ocean, right? Like you got to relocate all of your stuff somehow. Like it's not like moving from state to state where you're just driving and you pack your stuff in a U-Haul and you're good to go. So I think it's the barrier to get there is so difficult that I could definitely see it getting in people's heads like, why would you leave? Like you're already here, like you've made it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's always my advice to people. You cannot, like you make your money somewhere else because there's a lot of opportunities, I think, elsewhere. And you can always come back, retire here and enjoy. And I always joke about it because I know a lot of people that have moved to Vegas from Hawaii and now they come back for vacations and they're just like, man, I've been here for like 4 weeks and I've been at the beach every day. I've gone on more hikes, because when you're here, you're working every day, you're in traffic, and a lot of people don't actually get to appreciate, the islands and the paradise. And when they move someplace else and they come back for vacations, now it's just they actually get to enjoy the islands, and it's a big difference for them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Well, I also want to leave, today just a little. If you're driving and your car dies out of nowhere, it could be your fuel gauge is broken because yeah, I was driving and my car just died. And yeah, I thought it was the alternator, but the mechanic, I said, asked me, he advised me to just try putting some gas first, and I realized my sensor must be broken. I'm assuming that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know you could even run out of gas in Hawaii with how little driving you can do between places.
No, well, yeah, I mean, but I didn't realize how much gas my truck took. It's the first time I think I was ever, I never go that low on it. And I filled it up and it was like over $100. Thought there was a hole in my tank. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's funny.
No, but thanks. This was great. You got to share your screen. I think that's the first time we probably had a little numbers and charts. So like I said, see what happens when I give you 1 week to prepare for
I
this.
know. I come I come ready.
Yeah, well, I love doing this and, keep checking the comments. People are messaging us and I love helping out the community. And yeah, thanks for always doing this.
Yeah, I'd love to hear in the comments if people would move solely for tax reasons.
Yeah. And when are you coming to Hawaii?
That's a great question. I'll let you know.
You can do your business remotely.
That's true.
Yeah. See?
I don't want my address to be there.
All right. Well, we'll do this again next week. And I guess we have a live coming up sometime. So we'll let everyone know.
Yeah, see you later this
All
week.
right. Thanks. Bye.